Up until this point, I've been reviewing Will and Grace episodes individually, but I realised that I'm not in love with the show as much as I wanted to be. So I'm now going to be reviewing the episodes in batches. Maybe if I fall in love with the show further down the line, I'll go back to individual episode reviews. But for now, I'll review them in little chunks. And the last episode I reviewed was episode 10 of the first season. So I was actually going to review maybe the entirety of the rest of the season, but at least 6 or 7 episodes. But episode 13 has the best guest appearance ever, and I'm really excited about that, so I wanted to talk about that in turn. So today, I'm just going to talk a little about episodes 10, 11, and 12, and I'm pleased to say they're actually really good. Episode 12, it's not amazing, but it's okay. But 10 and 11, brilliant. So there will be spoilers as I discuss what happens and share some thoughts. And Season 1, Episode 10, The Big Vent, directed by James Burrows. This one has 2 parts to the narrative. One of them involves the fact that they've just had a new heating vent installed, and it turns out they can hear the downstairs neighbours. And throughout the episode, we have this real-life drama unfolding, as the woman downstairs is having an affair, and Grace is really interested in this. Will, not so much to begin with, but then as it develops, he becomes more involved. And it's okay. I thought it was interesting enough, and not a bad part of the episode. And I did think, when this was happening, I was thinking, hang on, but if they can hear, I know sound travels up, but if they can hear them speaking, then surely they can at least hear some of Will and Grace talking. And at the end of the episode, we do actually have the couple listening to Will and Grace, so that answered that question. I liked it. It worked well. The other part of the narrative focuses on Jack, who has taken a playwriting class, and he actually asks Karen for help, to which Karen responds with a brilliant quote, "I don't produce theatre, I am theatre," which I absolutely loved. And Karen finally agrees to read Jack's play, and she says, and I quote, "Your play stinks." And she encourages him to just write about what he knows. So he takes this advice. And just beforehand, Will and Grace are both having to leave the drama of the heating vent to go down and watch the play. And Will says, that's right, he's a writer this week. And that's kind of the first time when I've really realised that this could be a recurring thing for Jack, where every couple of episodes he's going to be trying something new, and that means we have something fresh and exciting and different, because goodness knows what career path he will try next. Now, I could be wrong. This could be something they've dabbled in for the first season or the first half of the first season, and maybe in a couple of episodes' time, Jack will actually find his career path and stick with it. I've got no idea, and I'm not necessarily saying I really want him to continue trying new careers, but if that's something that happens, I am quite excited to see what he might try next. And they go down to the play, and on stage, we have Will and Grace. We have actors playing representations of Will and Grace, played by Robert Curtis Brown and Jensen Daggett, and I thought it was really fun. And Jack actually has a message for Will and Grace, and I rather liked that. I thought it was a fun direction. So ultimately, I thought The Big Vent was a good episode. We then have Season 1, Episode 11, Will on Ice, directed again by the wonderful James Burrows, and it's Will's birthday. And he just wants a nice quiet dinner with Jack and Grace. Grace says that Jack doesn't like her, and Jack said the same thing to Will. But it turns out that Jack and Grace can bond over ice skating. They both love ice skating, and they managed to get reservations at the restaurant Balthazar. Well, Karen gets the reservations. So now Karen has to go to this quiet dinner, so it'll just be the 4 of them now. And Jack also happens to get Champions on Ice tickets for the same night. So for Will's birthday, even though Will could not care less about ice skating, they're going to see the ice show, and then they'll go to Balthazar's. And we spent quite a bit of time at the ice show, and Grace and Jack are really into it, and Will and Karen could not care less. And I did like seeing Will and Karen interacting. It's not something we've seen that much of compared with the other characters, and I did enjoy that. And Will ends up leaving, and Grace goes to him at the end of the night, and he said something that I really loved. He said, "Every year I end up doing what I don't want to do in order to make everyone else happy." And obviously he's specifically talking about his birthday and how his birthday plans are there for everybody else's benefit. But I feel like that could apply to anything. So many of us at one time or another, we'll do things for other people's benefit, even if it doesn't make ourselves happy. And if it's our birthday or if it's meant to be something for us, for example, you're going on vacation and you do everything else for everybody else and you don't get any joy out of it, it's not a great thing. So I think there are some nice takeaways from this. And Grace did make it up because at the end of the episode, she got Will the cowboy cake he wanted as a child, which is so sweet. And I'm just putting it out there now. Just as Will never got the cowboy cake he wanted, I never got the Bagpuss cake I wanted. Asda had this Bagpuss cake. It was in the shape of Bagpuss. Bagpuss's fur was pink and white frosting. And if I remember rightly, my mother said I could get it for my next birthday, and it was no longer available. I think that's what happened. And I never got that cake. So if anybody wants to make my dream come true and give me a frosting-covered cake in the shape of Bagpuss, I will be as happy as Will was when he got the cowboy cake. It was a really sweet way to end things, and I think there were some good takeaways there too as well. So ultimately, I thought Will on Ice was a decent episode as well. And then we come to Season 1, Episode 12, My Fair Maid-y, again directed by the wonderful James Burrows. And I didn't think there was anything wrong with this at all. I just didn't think it was as interesting as the other two. And we have two parts of the narrative, one focusing on Jack. Jack met a guy in a bookstore. This is Alex, played by Raphael Sbarge. And Jack pretended to be a lawyer to impress Alex. And he pretended that Will's office was his own. And he said that Alex said about himself that he and Jack aren't right for each other because Alex is, and I quote, lost and aimless. Whereas, of course, Jack, posing as a lawyer, seems like he has his career together, he knows what he wants, he's got a good focus in life. Alex describes himself as lost and aimless, and therefore, from his perspective, the pairing doesn't work. So the message there is be yourself. Don't try and impress somebody by pretending to be somebody you're not, because you never know what that person is looking for. And Jack responds, I'm not a lawyer, I'm a liar, which I enjoyed that quite a lot. So great message there, and rather enjoyed that. The main narrative focuses on Grace's upcoming presentation in an annual showcase. Every year she brings forward designs. She never wins, and the house is a mess. It's cluttered with her designs. So Will decides to hire a cleaner, not necessarily for Grace's benefit. He says it's so Grace can work better in a cleaner environment, but that's what he wants. And this cleaner is April, played by Wendy Jo Sperber, and she's rather aggressive, but very encouraging. And Grace describes her as you're like a spoonful of whoopas, because she describes her as being like a very aggressive Mary Poppins. And I rather liked that quite a lot. I thought the character was really interesting, very well written, really great performance. And I like the fact that her methods may not have been what Grace was used to, but Grace was actually really inspired by this, and she had some really great design ideas, and she was really excited about the presentation at the showcase. And she explained this to Will, and Will said, and I didn't like this, Will said, and I quote, you're relying on a maid to do your job. Will, I feel, isn't a creative type, at least compared with Grace, so maybe he doesn't understand this. But inspiration can come from anywhere. Encouragement can come from anywhere. So who is he to judge if Grace finds inspiration and encouragement from April? Also, let's not talk down and say relying on a maid to do your job as if she's just a maid, just a cleaner, as if she can't bring any value in any other way. And I don't like Will's attitude there, and it's very unusual for me to disagree with something Will has said. I say it's unusual, I'm only 12 episodes in, but up until this point, I've usually always been able to see Will's perspective and understood where he's coming from. But his attitude here was really unacceptable. Maybe I'm speaking as a creative. I do know that creativity can be driven by anything. Inspiration can come from anywhere. Motivation can come from anywhere. And that's certainly what we see with Grace. Also, I should point out, I think that's what the episode is saying as well. I don't think the episode is agreeing with Will. But also the episode did take the time to show that Grace could do it on her own. She ultimately was able to do it without April. April gave her encouragement to a point, and then Grace was able to take it over that final hurdle at the showcase. So I think it was actually really well balanced, and I thought everything worked out really well. Also, Will paid April to not go to the showcase as she was meant to. And on the one hand, that's not acceptable. That's meddling and dismissive of Grace's feelings. But also, he originally hired April, so technically, was she on the clock? I don't know if it was established that that was during her employment hours that she was going down there, or if that's something she was doing outside of the time she was paid to clean the apartment. So I guess if that's during the time she was paid to clean the apartment, then yeah, she shouldn't have been there. She should have been at the apartment. But if that was something she was doing in her own time, Will had zero business saying where she could or couldn't be. So not a great look for Will, but maybe there's a bit of leeway if she was technically meant to be on the clock. So I'm not sure. But either way, I thought My Fair Maid-y was a fine episode. Absolutely fine. I didn't like it as much as I did the previous two, but nevertheless, I rather enjoyed it. And I can't wait. I cannot wait for the next episode. I know it's going to be amazing. And, well, at least the guest appearance will be amazing. I'll talk about that more when I get there. Once I've done that, I will go back to reviewing them in batches. And for now, I'm pleased to say that Season 1, Episodes 10, 11, and for the most part 12 are pretty decent episodes of Will and Grace.